Hi, this is Emma McKnight, and this is a seminar about the theme of growing up in J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. My impression of this novel was that it was very well told, and it was highly relatable for such an old novel. My interest was maintained throughout the entirety of the book, and there were tough themes talked about through the book that were easily digestible through the manner that they were presented. At times, there were large emotions that were evoked for the characters such as Holden and the others because of the situations that they had been put in. I thought that it was a simple read, but had very substantial significance and strong relation to today's society. Now for a quick summary of the novel. Holden, the main character, gets kicked out of his preparatory school, called Pensy Prep, but decides to leave 2 days early and goes to New York. While in New York, he spends the next 48 hours sleeping in cheap hotels, on park benches, going to bars, meeting up with old friends, and creating new relationships, hiring hookers, getting into trouble, and fantasizing about a new life. In all, it ends with him back at home, with the impression that he is in a hospital getting psychiatric help, but is going to a new school the following fall. The novel covers many themes common in teenage life, including innocence, depression and isolation, exclusion from society, loss, hatred for others, but most importantly, growing up. Growing up is a fact of life, and most people embrace this time as it is an important time in life where a new mindset, outlook on life is created. Growing up comes with more responsibilities, yet more freedom at the same time. Most interesting thing, though, is Holden disagrees with this concept greatly and tries his best to avoid it at all cost through the following manners. A proof showing his hatred towards growing up comes from his favorite place, the Museum of Natural History in New York City. When he visits the museum, he makes the remark that nobody'd be different. The only thing that would be different would be you. It is clear that Holden enjoys the fact that every time you return to this museum, its displays always remain the same and nothing changes, something he wishes could happen for him. However, much to his dismay, every time Holden goes back to the museum, he has changed in some way, which upsets him. The museum symbolizes the ideal world for Holden, one where everything stays the same, and somewhere with limited social interactions. Something else demonstrating the theme of growing up, but Holden's reluctance to do so, is his dream life. His dream life is to move to the West Coast. His plan is to get a job. I pretend to be one of those deaf mutes, even though he knows he has to go into the real world at some point, and he'll have to get a job. He has the childish mindset that in order to avoid people and interactions, he will simply pretend to have a disability that restricts him from both speaking and listening to others. Needless to say, Holden would rather be alone in his own self-made isolation, in a world fabricated in lies, than grow up and become a functioning member of society. This further proves the idea that Holden is afraid of growing up, and the theme and importance of growing up throughout the novel. The final aspect showing the theme of growing up is Holden's ambition in life. Holden's dream job is the following. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. That's all I'll do all day. I'd just be the catcher in the rye and all. Holden simply wants to be the catcher in the rye. He would like nothing more than to stand on the edge of the cliff and catch children who are about to fall off the cliff and turn into adults and have to grow up. Holden evidently wants to be this because he wishes someone caught him before he fell off the cliff and subsequently had to learn how to grow up. He wants to ensure that the little kids who are playing in the field of rye will never have to become subject of the ideas of adulthood and the scary nature of being on their own and having to grow up. Holden wishes to do this for the children, as a sense to preserve his own youth. An act of catching and placing the children back on the field gives him a purpose for the baseball glove of Allie's that he's kept all this time. Holden rightfully has an obsession with the glove of his late brother, and he brings it with him everywhere, but keeps it hidden from everyone he meets. The game of catching the falling children play into the symbolism of the glove, as well as the theme of growing up. Holden evades growing up by catching these children and placing them back on the mountain, where they can continue to live their lives as children. Holden has every right to be afraid of growing up. In the words of Dr. Carl E. Pickthart, a doctor of psychology and author of books surrounding children who are reluctant to grow up, they are afraid of growing up for the following reason. There's more worldly experience, but there's also more worldly challenge. There's more independence, but there's also more being on your own. There's more you can do, but there's also more of a past to relinquish. There's more freedom anticipated, but there's also more responsibility expected. There's more freedom to enjoy, but there's also some more self-management to learn. It is clear that this is overwhelming for Holden, an immature, young teenage boy who does not want to think about all of these facts that he has to do. So instead, he avoids the theme of growing up, but keeps it present throughout all of his thoughts. In all, Holden's ideas of even the future are childish. Even though the theme of growing up is so prominent in this novel, it is in the negative form, where Holden avoids growing up as if it is the worst thing that could possibly happen to him. This uncertainty of his future is probably the cause of his outbursts, his depression, and isolation, 3 other common themes throughout this novel. In all, hopefully, his new school that he plans to attend in the new fall, along with psychiatric help, will help him see the positives about the future.